The night was calm aboard the old human freighter drifting near the edge of alien space. Inside one of its cabins, a single lamp glowed faintly, casting soft light across shelves lined with worn books. The man sitting in the chair looked ordinary at first glance. His beard was trimmed, his eyes relaxed, and his hands moved slowly across the pages of an old book. The galaxy called him dangerous, but to anyone peeking inside that room he seemed harmless, almost gentle. That was what made him different. While armies marched and fleets clashed, he sat reading as if war did not touch him. But outside, war was never far. The human colonies had been drawn into conflict with the Crimson Dominion, a vast empire led by ruthless queens and their armies of assassins. Humans were thought to be weak, slow to adapt, and far behind in technology. Yet one by one, the Dominion's plans failed when humans showed a resilience the Empire had never seen. Entire fleets crumbled because humans fought in ways no strategy predicted. And so the order was whispered across dark halls: find the human who disturbed their calculations and end him. She came silently, her feet making no sound against the floor. The ship's sensors never caught her shadow slipping past. Her red skin shimmered faintly under the pale lights, and her silver-white hair flowed like liquid down her armored shoulders. In her hand, a blade hummed softly, glowing red with energy, sharp enough to cut steel as if it were cloth. She had been trained since childhood, her mission clear. No mistakes, no hesitation. One strike to the human's heart and the threat would be gone. She entered the room like a shadow, her blade raised. But the man never startled. He did not leap or reach for a weapon. He only turned a page of his book, then lifted his gaze. His eyes met hers calmly, a faint smile on his lips as if he had been waiting all along. The assassin froze for just a heartbeat. Assassins were trained to kill swiftly, never pausing. Yet something about the man's eyes unsettled her. There was no fear in them. Instead, there was knowledge, patience, and something dangerous she could not name. "You're late," the man said, his voice steady, almost amused. He closed the book with one hand and placed it gently on the table. No armor, no weapon, no shield between them. The assassin's grip tightened on her blade. She had faced warlords who trembled at her presence, princes who begged for their lives, generals who collapsed under her shadow. But this human simply smiled at her, as if her blade was nothing more than a toy. Her training screamed at her to strike, to end it in a single move. But another part of her, the part that rarely spoke, hesitated. Why did he know she was coming? Why did he wait without fear? And why, above all, did his calm smile feel more threatening than the sharpest blade? The silence stretched between them, heavy with tension. The glow of her blade painted the walls red, flickering against the man's face. He leaned back in his chair, his eyes never leaving hers. "If you're going to kill me," he said softly, "at least sit first." It's rude to interrupt a man in the middle of a story. She blinked, confused. This was not how the mission was meant to go. Assassins did not sit with their prey, yet something in his tone held her still, caught between her duty and her curiosity. The galaxy had warned her of human tricks, of their strange ability to twist enemies into allies, to turn war into something else. And now, for the first time in her life, she wondered if even an assassin could be caught. The assassin's blade stayed steady in her hand, its red glow humming like a heartbeat. Her instinct screamed for action to end this mission quickly. But the human's calmness pressed against her like an invisible weight. She had killed without hesitation before, yet here she stood, frozen. His eyes were locked on hers, steady and sure, as if he knew every move she might make. She took a step closer, her voice sharp. "You should be afraid." The words came out low, almost a growl. The man only tilted his head as though studying her.
"Fear?" he said quietly.
"I left that behind long ago." His tone carried no arrogance, only fact, and that unsettled her more than a room full of armed guards. Her grip on the blade tightened. The glow reflected in his eyes, but he didn't flinch. He looked at her as though she wasn't an assassin at all, but something more. A guest, perhaps, or even an equal. She hated that feeling. She was trained to be more than human, faster, stronger, deadlier. Yet in this moment she felt the smallest tremor in her heart, a thing she had buried long ago. "You were sent by the Dominion," he said, leaning forward slightly. "They fear what they don't understand." "That's why you're here," she stiffened. He knew her orders? He knew who had sent her? Her thoughts raced, but her training told her to show nothing. She kept her blade raised, though her mind was beginning to fray at the edges. "Enough," she hissed, snapping her thoughts back into place. One strike and your story ends. The man leaned back in his chair, smiling again. Or maybe it begins. His words lingered in the air, heavier than the hum of her weapon. She wanted to silence him, to erase that calm voice from existence. But deep inside, something dangerous bloomed, curiosity. Why did he not fight? Why did he not plead? Why did he seem to expect her? Her body moved before her mind decided. She lunged forward, blade flashing bright. But as the strike descended, the human shifted, almost lazily, tilting just enough for the blade to miss his chest and sink into the wooden arm of the chair. Sparks hissed, and the wood charred instantly. But he sat there unscathed, his calm unbroken. Her eyes widened. No one had ever moved like that. Not so effortlessly, not so precisely. It wasn't speed, it wasn't strength. It was as though he had seen her strike before it happened. You're good, he said softly, almost admiring. But you're not here to kill me. Not really. Her jaw tightened. That is exactly why I'm here. She yanked the blade free, but her hands trembled for the first time in years. He stood slowly, his movements measured, deliberate. The lamplight caught the lines of his face, showing a quiet strength that no weapon could cut. No, he said, stepping closer. You're here because they fear me. They fear what I know, what I've seen, and they fear that if even one of their assassins hesitates, the Dominion will start to crack. Her chest tightened. How could he speak her thoughts so clearly? She had hesitated, she knew it. She had let his words creep into her mind. And now doubt gnawed at her, a weakness the Dominion would never forgive. You don't know me, she snapped, trying to drown the tremor in her voice. Not yet, he agreed, his smile faint but unshaken. But you will. The silence that followed was suffocating. The assassin felt her world tilt. This mission was no longer simple. Killing him should have been easy. But now, standing so close, blade in hand, she realized something terrifying. For the first time in her life, she wasn't sure she could finish the job. The hum of her blade filled the room, but the assassin's breathing was louder in her own ears. Her heart raced, though she tried to hide it behind the mask of discipline she had worn all her life. This was supposed to be simple. Get in, kill the human, leave without a trace. Instead, she found herself standing face to face with a man who should have been trembling, yet acted as if he held all the power. He studied her in silence, his eyes sharp but calm. She hated how steady his gaze was. It made her feel like every secret she carried, every scar and doubt was laid bare. She lifted her chin, forcing her voice to sound like steel. You think words will save you? The man didn't move back, didn't show fear. He leaned slightly closer, his voice soft but clear. Not words, truth. The assassin's grip tightened. Truth? She almost laughed, though the sound caught in her throat. The only truth here is your death. Then why haven't you given it to me? He asked quietly. Her body stiffened. For a moment, the words cut deeper than her own blade ever could. Why hadn't she killed him yet? She had the chance. She still had it. Yet something about him anchored her hand. Her voice dropped into a whisper. I don't hesitate. You just did. His reply was quick, certain, leaving no space for denial. Her chest burned with anger. She lunged again, her blade slicing toward his throat. But once more he shifted with the smallest motion, his body moving as though guided by a map she couldn't see. Her blade hissed through empty air and her frustration boiled. No one had ever avoided her so easily. Enough games, she snarled. He straightened, folding his hands calmly behind his back. Games? No, this is a choice, yours. Her breath caught. Choice. That word was forbidden in her training. Assassins were taught to obey, to follow the order of the Dominion without question. Choice was weakness. Choice was rebellion. Yet hearing it from his lips made her chest ache, as if something buried deep inside her was clawing to the surface. Her voice trembled despite her effort. You don't understand what you're saying. Oh, I understand, he said softly. I know the Dominion forged you in shadows. I know they filled you with orders, not thoughts. But I also know there's more in you than they ever wanted to see. The assassin froze. Her hand shook against the hilt of her blade. How could he know? How could a human she had never met speak words that felt carved into her very bones? Her memories flickered. Training halls filled with screams, cold masters teaching her to silence her doubts, punishments for every flicker of hesitation. She had buried it all. Yet now, standing in front of him, those walls cracked. You know nothing about me, she spat, though her voice was weaker now. He stepped closer, slow and unthreatening until she could see the calm in his eyes. I know enough. I know you're not here because of who I am. You're here because of what they fear I'll do. And maybe deep inside you fear the same thing. The assassin's blade trembled. The glow flickered across his face, but he didn't flinch. She realized then that he wasn't just unafraid, he was waiting. Not waiting for death, but waiting for her. The silence between them pressed like a storm. She could strike and end it all. She could prove her loyalty, silence this dangerous voice forever. But her hand refused to obey. For the first time in her life, she wondered if the mission she carried was not hers at all. The assassin's arm lowered a fraction, the blade's hum still sharp in the air. Her eyes burned with conflict, but her training screamed louder than her doubts. She had never faltered before. Yet this human had made her hesitate twice. If the Dominion learned of this, she would not live to see another mission. The man seemed to read the storm in her face. You don't want to kill me, he said gently, his voice steady like a stone in rushing water. Her jaw clenched. I was born to kill, he shook his head slowly. No, you were trained to kill. There's a difference. The word struck deeper than she wanted to admit. For years she had told herself that killing was her nature. It was the only way she survived the Dominion's training. But hearing the difference spoken aloud made something inside her twist painfully. She stepped back, blade raised higher to hide the tremor in her hand. Stop, she hissed. Say another word and I'll end you. His faint smile didn't fade. Instead, he sat back down in his chair as if the conversation had exhausted him, more than her blade ever could. He picked up the book again, flipping it open with a quiet rustle of pages. If you were going to end me, you already would have. The calm certainty in his voice stung worse than a blade wound. Her breath came fast. Every assassin was taught that hesitation killed. Yet she was the one frozen while her target sat reading. Why? She demanded suddenly. Her own voice surprised her. Why do you wait? Why don't you fight? He looked up, his eyes calm, his tone unshaken. Because I already know how this ends. Her chest tightened. You think you can predict me? No, he said softly. I think you can't kill me. Not tonight, maybe not ever. Her heart pounded, anger mixing with confusion. She was losing control, something her masters had warned her never to allow. An assassin without control was nothing. But she couldn't stop her voice from trembling as she asked, What makes you so sure? He leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. Because you're tired of being their weapon. The words sliced through her armor deeper than any blade. She staggered a step back, her weapon lowering without thought. He shouldn't know that. He couldn't know that. Yet somehow he had spoken the truth she had buried for years. Memories flooded her. Missions where her victims pleaded before dying. The emptiness she felt after each kill. The nights she lay awake staring at ceilings, wondering if she was more than a shadow. She had forced those doubts down, sealed them away. And now with one sentence, the human had ripped them open. Her voice cracked. You don't understand what I've done. He nodded slowly, his eyes never leaving hers. I don't need to. I only need to see who you are now. The assassin's blade dimmed as her grip loosened. She could kill him still, one clean strike. But her body no longer moved with certainty. For the first time, she wasn't sure which choice would destroy her more. Obeying her orders, or listening to the human who saw through her mask. You think you can save me? She whispered bitterly. No, he replied, calm as ever. I think you can save yourself. The silence that followed felt heavy, almost unbearable. The assassin's chest heaved with unspoken words while the man sat quietly, waiting as though time itself bent to his patience. She hated him for it. She feared him for it, and worst of all, she wanted to believe him. The assassin's hands trembled, and it angered her more than anything else. Assassins were meant to be unshakable. Her masters had carved fear out of her with pain, burned doubt from her with fire. Yet here she stood, blade in hand, staring at a human who should already be dead, and somehow he had cracked her more easily than anyone ever had. Do you know what the Dominion does to those who fail? She asked, her voice hard, but it wavered at the edges. The man nodded slowly, closing his book again. They break them. They make an example of them. Her breath caught. He spoke the truth so casually, as if he had seen it himself. Her mind swirled with images, assassins who faltered, dragged into dark halls never to return. She had sworn never to share their fate. Failure was worse than death. Then you understand, she hissed. If I walk away now, my life is over. His gaze didn't soften, but neither did it turn cruel. And if you kill me, what then? Do you think the emptiness you've carried will vanish? The assassin's chest tightened. She wanted to deny it, to bury the ache that had haunted her for years. Killing had never filled the void. It only widened it. You don't know me, she said weakly. Maybe not, he agreed. But I know what chains look like. And I see them wrapped around you, heavier than any blade you hold. The words stung because they were true. She felt the invisible chains even now pulling her toward duty, toward obedience, toward death. Her blade shook and she lowered it at last. The glow dimmed until it was only a faint red line. She hated herself for the weakness, but something in her chest loosened too, as if air reached places long starved. You don't understand the Dominion, she whispered. They'll never stop. If I fail, they'll send another.
And another.
Until you're gone. The man leaned back, folding his arms. Then I'll deal with them. Just like I'm dealing with you. Her eyes flashed. Dealing with me? You haven't fought back once. He smiled faintly, though there was no mockery in it. Because you're not my enemy. The words stunned her. She almost laughed at the absurdity. Not his enemy? She had crept into his room with a blade meant for his heart. How could he see her as anything else? You're insane, she muttered, shaking her head. Or maybe I see more clearly than you think, he answered. The assassin turned away, pressing her blade against the wall instead of him. Sparks hissed where it cut into the metal, but she didn't strike. She couldn't. Her heart was caught between two worlds, duty and something she had no name for. At last she spoke, her voice low. If I leave here alive, they will come for both of us. You don't know what you've done. His voice stayed calm. Then let them come. She turned sharply to face him. Why aren't you afraid? He met her gaze with that same steady calm. Because fear belongs to those who let others control them. I chose long ago not to be ruled. The assassin's throat tightened. Those words echoed deep inside her, striking a place she thought long buried. She had been ruled her entire life by the Dominion, by orders, by fear of failure. The thought of living without chains both terrified and tempted her. For the first time in years, she felt uncertain about who she truly was. And as she stood in that quiet room with the man who refused to fear her, she realized something even more dangerous. The mission was no longer about ending a life. It was about deciding her own. The ship was quiet, but the silence between them was louder than any battle she had ever fought. The assassin stood with her blade lowered, her body tense, her mind torn apart. She had never once questioned an order. Yet here she was, her mission unfinished, her target alive, and her heart pounding with doubt. The human leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. You're still deciding, he said softly. That's good. Decisions mean the Dominion doesn't own you completely. Her jaw clenched. They own me more than you can imagine. Maybe, he said calmly. But you're standing here alive, blade in hand, and I'm still breathing. That tells me they don't own everything. His words pressed against her thoughts like weights. She wanted to push them away, but deep inside a small voice whispered he might be right. She hated that voice, yet it was louder now than ever before. You think you're clever, she said bitterly. You're trying to turn me. I don't have to try, he replied. You've already turned yourself. Her chest tightened, anger and fear colliding. She wanted to strike him, to silence that calm voice, but her arm refused. Her training demanded obedience, but her heart demanded something else, a freedom she had never known. She stepped back, pressing her free hand against the wall as if to steady herself. The ship's metal felt cold under her palm. You don't understand. If I don't kill you, they'll send another. If I betray them, they'll hunt me until I'm dead. His eyes never wavered. Then don't betray them. Walk away, live, they'll think you succeeded. Her head snapped up, her eyes wide. You would let me claim your death? He smiled faintly. Why not? They already believe humans are unpredictable. It would only add to their fear. The thought rattled her. To return with a lie was unthinkable. Lies meant dishonor, punishment worse than death. Yet the idea sparked in her mind like fire. Could she really walk away? Could she choose her own path? Her voice was sharp but not steady. Why would you let me live? Because you're not my enemy, he said again, simple and certain. The assassin's throat tightened. No one had ever spoken those words to her. To the Dominion, she was a weapon. To her masters, she was a shadow. To her targets, she was death. But here, in this quiet room, she was something else, someone he refused to call an enemy. Her chest ached, and for the first time she felt the sting of tears pressing behind her eyes. She blinked them back furiously, shoving the weakness away. "You don't know what you're saying," she whispered. He stood then, slow and unhurried. His height was not imposing, but his presence filled the space. "I know exactly what I'm saying, and I think you know it too. You've always known." Her blade dimmed as her hand dropped to her side. She couldn't hold it anymore. Her whole body shook, caught between two lives, one of chains and one of choices. "I can't," she muttered. "I can't walk away." "Yes, you can," he said firmly. "You just have to decide who you are." The assassin's breath came fast, shallow. Her eyes darted to the door, to the shadows, to anywhere but him. Her master's voices echoed in her head, cold and sharp, demanding obedience. Yet louder still was his calm voice, cutting through them like light. For the first time in her life, she stood at the edge of something terrifying. Not a mission, not death, but freedom. And freedom, she realized, was the sharpest blade of all. The assassin's blade was quiet now, its glow fading as though it too had lost the will to fight. She stood trembling, her heart pounding harder than in any battle she had faced. Never had she felt so exposed. Never had a mission unraveled this way. The human watched her calmly, his eyes steady as stone. He was not armed, yet she felt trapped under his gaze, as if every thought in her mind was being weighed. "You've made your choice already," he said softly. She shook her head quickly, almost desperately. "No, I haven't. I can still finish this." Her hand twitched on the hilt, but it did not rise. "You could," he said. "But you won't." His certainty burned her. She had been raised to kill without question. But he spoke as if her fate was already written, as if she was not a predator at all, but a prisoner trying to escape. "You don't know me," she whispered again, weaker this time. He tilted his head slightly. "Then tell me, who are you if not theirs?" The words pierced her. She opened her mouth, but no answer came. All her life her name had been stripped away, her identity forged into a weapon. She was no one outside the Dominion's orders. And now, asked plainly, she realized she did not know herself at all. She turned away sharply, pacing the room like a caged beast. Her breath was ragged. She wanted to scream, to fight, to break something, but her hands only shook harder. "You think I can walk away," she said bitterly. "But the Dominion never lets go. They will track me. They will chain me again." He leaned against the table, calm as ever. "Then don't let them." Her head snapped toward him. "You speak like it's simple." "It is," he replied. "Simple, but not easy." The assassin stared, her chest rising and falling with uneven breaths. She wanted to hate him, to call him foolish, but his words lodged deep inside her. She remembered the punishments, the nights of silence, the endless training that stole every piece of her. The Dominion had taken her childhood, her freedom, her soul. And now, for the first time, she wondered if she could take them back. Her hand slipped from the hilt entirely. The blade powered down with a soft hiss, leaving only the dim lamp to light the room. Her heart raced with the sound, terrified of what it meant. She had just broken her orders. "They'll kill me," she whispered. "They'll send others." "Let them," the human said quietly. "You've faced worse than death." His voice was not mocking, not careless. It carried weight, the kind of weight only someone who had seen much suffering could carry. She believed him, though she could not say why. For a moment the assassin closed her eyes. She could almost feel the chains loosening. Not gone, not yet, but lighter. When she opened her eyes, she found him still watching, still waiting. His patience was endless, and that frightened her as much as it calmed her. "Why me?" she asked suddenly. "Why do you care what I choose?" He studied her for a long time before answering. "Because I know what it's like to be used, to be turned into something you're not. And because I see the person you could be if you stop letting them define you." Her throat tightened. She wanted to deny it, to tell him he was wrong. But deep inside, a small, fragile part of her wanted to believe he was right. For the first time, the assassin lowered her blade completely, setting it aside. The room felt different without its glow, quieter, more human. And in that silence, she realized she had crossed a line she could never return from. The assassin stared at the blade she had set down. It glowed faintly on the floor, its light pulsing like a dying heart. For years it had been her companion, her judge, her tool of survival. Without it in her hand, she felt exposed, almost naked. Yet at the same time she felt a strange relief, like setting down a weight she hadn't realized she was carrying. The human leaned against the table, watching quietly. He did not smile this time, nor did he mock her choice. He only nodded once, as though acknowledging something important had just happened. "You've already begun," he said softly. She frowned. "Begun what?" "Your freedom." Her chest tightened at the word. Freedom was a dangerous idea. The Dominion taught that freedom was chaos, that only obedience kept the galaxy in order. She had believed it all her life. But now, standing in this quiet room, she wondered if that was just another lie carved into her mind. Her voice was sharp, though not steady. "Freedom gets you killed, sometimes," he admitted. "But living without it isn't living at all." His words pressed into her heart like a blade. She turned away, her hands clenching into fists. The silence of the ship seemed heavier than ever. She thought of her masters, of their cold eyes and harsher punishments. If they discovered she had faltered, there would be no mercy, and yet, she had already faltered. She turned back to him suddenly, anger sparking. "You don't understand. I can't just vanish. The Dominion will come. They'll tear this ship apart. They'll send hunters until you and I are both dead." He met her fury with calm. "Then let them come. I've faced worse storms," her eyes narrowed. "You think you can fight them?" "I don't have to fight them alone," he replied. The assassin blinked, startled. The implication sank in slowly. He was not just speaking of himself. He was speaking of her. He saw her not as an enemy, not as a weapon, but as an ally. The thought unsettled her more than any blade at her throat. "You want me to fight with you," she said flatly. "I want you to choose," he corrected. "If you fight, let it be for yourself, not because they command you." Her breath caught. She had never fought for herself. Every kill, every mission, every step of her life had been for them. The idea of fighting for her own reasons felt alien, frightening, but it also felt like a spark she had never known she needed. "You're asking me to betray everything I am," she whispered. "No," he said firmly. "I'm asking you to become who you really are." Her throat tightened. The words hit deeper than she wanted them to. She thought of her childhood, of the girl she once had been before the Dominion took her name and forged her into a blade. That girl had dreams once. She could not remember them clearly, but she knew they had existed. Could she find her again? Or was it too late? Silence hung between them. She looked down at the blade on the floor, its glow dimming further as if waiting for her decision. Then she looked back at him. His calm eyes held no demand, only patience. He would not force her. The choice was hers alone. Her voice trembled as she spoke. "If I walk this path, there's no going back." He nodded once. "That's the point." The assassin closed her eyes, her chest rising with a long breath. For the first time in her life, the mission before her was not written by others. It was hers. And though it terrified her, she felt something fierce spark to life inside. Something that might one day become strength. The assassin sat on the edge of the chair across from him, her blade lying silent on the floor. She had never felt so vulnerable. Without the weapon in her hand, without the certainty of orders driving her, she felt as though the ground beneath her feet was crumbling. Yet at the same time, there was a strange steadiness in her chest. For the first time, her next step belonged to her. The human opened his book again, flipping to a page with deliberate calm. "You've already chosen more than you realize," he said quietly. She narrowed her eyes. "I've chosen nothing. I'm only delaying." "Delaying is still choosing," he said without looking up. "It means you want another path." Her hands curled into fists in her lap. He made it sound so simple, but in her mind she could hear the Dominion's voices. If she failed them, she would be hunted like prey. She could imagine the others, assassins sharper, stronger, faster than her, sent to finish what she could not. "They will kill me for this," she whispered. "Maybe," he admitted. Then he looked up, his eyes steady on hers. "Or maybe you'll finally live." The assassin stared at him, her chest rising and falling fast. "You speak of freedom as if it's a shield, but freedom doesn't stop blades." "No," he said softly, "but it gives you a reason to stand even when the blades come." The words hung heavy in the air. She hated how they stirred something inside her, a small flame that refused to die even against fear. A faint sound broke the silence. The ship's sensors beeped once, a soft warning tone. Her head snapped toward the door, instincts flaring. She knew that sound. It meant someone or something was near. Her blood ran cold. "They've already come," The human didn't move with panic. He closed the book gently, setting it aside. I told you they would. The assassin rose quickly, her blade in hand once more. The red glow flared to life, casting shadows across her face. Her body shifted back into the familiar stance of a killer, though her heart was no longer the same. She turned to him, her voice sharp. You should be afraid. If they're here, they won't stop until one of us is dead. He rose slowly, his calm unbroken. Then it won't be us, her eyes widened. You speak as if you know. I do, he said simply. Because you're not with them anymore. The assassin froze. His words struck like lightning. She wanted to argue, but her silence betrayed her. Deep inside, she knew he was right. By lowering her blade earlier, by choosing not to strike him, she had already broken from the Dominion. The ship shuddered lightly, as if something had latched onto its hull. Heavy footsteps echoed faintly beyond the door. Her chest tightened. She knew those steps. Dominion enforcers, hunters trained to kill both traitors and targets. Her blade hummed in her hand, but for the first time she did not feel like their weapon. She felt like herself. And though fear crawled through her veins, it was not the same fear that had ruled her all her life. The human looked at her, his expression calm but firm. When that door opens, you'll have to decide. Not for me. For you. Her grip tightened on the blade. She stared at the door, at the shadows moving beyond it. The moment was coming fast, the one she had spent her whole life running from. For years she had killed because she was ordered. For years she had lived in chains. But now, standing in this quiet room with the man who refused to fear her, she realized she had one chance to decide who she truly was. And as the door hissed, beginning to slide open, she knew the next strike would not be for the Dominion, it would be her own. The door slid open with a sharp hiss. Cold air rushed in, and with it came the heavy steps of Dominion hunters. 3 figures entered, tall and armored, their faces hidden behind masks that glowed faint red. Each carried a weapon designed to cut through steel. Their eyes locked on the assassin first, then shifted to the human who stood calmly beside her. The assassin's heart pounded. These were not ordinary soldiers. They were sent to erase mistakes, to erase her. One of them spoke, his voice metallic. You failed. Step aside. We will finish the mission. The assassin's blade hummed to life, her hand steady now. She felt fear, but it no longer ruled her. For the first time, she was not fighting because she was ordered. She was fighting because she chose. No, she said firmly. The hunters froze, their helmets tilted slightly, confusion flickering. Assassins never defied orders. The leader's voice sharpened. You dare betray the Dominion? The assassin's voice rose, clear and sharp. I was never theirs. Not truly. She shifted her stance, the glow of her blade painting the floor red. The hunters raised their weapons in unison, but before they could strike, the human stepped forward, placing himself at her side. You don't have to fight alone, he said quietly. Her chest tightened. She had never stood with anyone before. Always in shadows, always apart. But now, standing shoulder to shoulder with him, she felt stronger than she ever had. The hunters lunged. Blades clashed in a shower of sparks. The assassin moved with speed and precision, her body flowing through years of training. But this time, every strike carried something new, purpose. Not obedience, not fear, but choice. She cut through the first hunter's guard, her blade slicing his weapon in half before striking his chest. Sparks burst as he fell, armor scorched. The second swung wide, but the human moved with uncanny timing, dodging just as he had against her earlier. His hand caught the enemy's arm, twisting it until the blade dropped. The assassin finished the strike, ending the fight with clean precision. The last hunter hesitated, his stance faltering as he watched 2 of his kind fall. He looked at her, at the human, and for a moment doubt flashed even in his masked face. But duty pushed him forward. He charged. The assassin met him head-on, her blade locking against his. Sparks lit the room, the sound of grinding energy filling the air. Her muscles screamed, but she pressed harder, pushing him back step by step. Then, with a fierce cry, she twisted and drove her blade through his chest. The hunter collapsed. Silence returned to the room, broken only by the assassin's ragged breathing. She lowered her weapon slowly, her body shaking with exhaustion. 3 hunters lay defeated at her feet. For years, she had killed because she was told, but tonight she killed because she chose to live. The human stepped closer, his calm eyes steady on her. You've made your decision. She nodded, her chest rising and falling heavily. Yes, I'm done being their shadow. For the first time, her words felt like her own. Not the Dominion's, not her master's. Hers. She deactivated her blade and let it fall to the floor. The red glow faded, leaving only the soft lamplight. For the first time, the room felt warm. "What happens now?" she asked softly. The human smiled faintly. "Now you begin," her throat tightened. She didn't know what freedom would look like or how long it would last. But she knew this, she would not walk it alone. Together, they turned from the bodies on the floor. Beyond the door lay a galaxy that would hunt her, chains waiting to drag her back. But beyond it also lay something the Dominion could never give. Her own life, her own choice. And as she stepped forward beside the human, she felt the chains that bound her finally break. For the first time she was free.